So, excuse me. I wanted to get to the point, the conclusion. I mean, there's more, significantly more to talk about. I don't know, pages and pages and pages of notes I took on this book. Again, it's Rutkovsky. Let me get it here. Excuse me. Rutkovsky. Roughly translated, Red Terror and the Activities of the Cheka in 1918, published 2006 in St. Petersburg. And basically, I sifted through the notes and, let's get down to the point. Or, one aspect of all of this, which is body count. So, by the end of 1918, into February 1919, the Reds for, I guess, all of 1918, according to Rutkovsky, as best he can figure, going back through periodicals, that is, or I guess including Pravda, Izvestia, and all the various, whatever you want to call them, magazines or newspapers of the people of the time. He estimates 8,000 pretty much counter-revolutionaries were killed by the Reds, mostly in two waves of terror in the summer and fall of 1918. Approximately August 30th to November 6th, 1918. On the other hand, what was it? A total of 65,000 Red Finns and Soviet citizens et al. Were killed in the White Terror, the counter-revolutionary terror. And again, excuse me, these people, they had the politics of, the squad would have been nominally the right wing of the white counter-revolutionaries. Oh, God. Just imagine that, And, so the dividing line here was, are you for the dictatorship of the working class, Joe Blow versus Karen and Chad, Becky and Kyle? Should the working class, run the society and attempt to, not just attempt, but in reality in the Soviet Republic, Soviet Union, a population increased geometrically, and the productivity, the wealth of the country increased. I don't know, by incredible leaps and bounds. Not going to try to get into that, but anyway, just to focus on the body count for now. So, what was the cost of the revolution initially, right? And then, somewhat looking at it until the destruction of the revolutionary state. Let's see, and well, also extrapolating from the Finnish experience, where basically in the white repression after the failed Finnish Revolution, 1% of Finland was basically murdered, let's call it. And the population of the Soviet Republic, I guess, at that time, or 1920, was approximately, let's say, 145 million. So basically, if if the counter-revolutionaries, in Russia, the Russian Empire, the whatever, had been able to, restore their power, and then went on to execute, their red enemies, their worker enemies. You're probably looking at about 1.5 million, um, uh, mostly worker victims, soldier, red soldier, worker, peasant Jew victims of etc. of these scum, the Kolchaks, the oh, Rongels, etc. So all of the, Elon Musk, Chad, Kyle, Becky, Karen, filth. Well, it's here today in Russia, and they're not pleasant people. So, they're brutal, hysterical. Maybe less stupid than, like a place like Poland or the Baltics. Yeah, I'm willing to bet they are. Simply because, this was the center of the revolution, but still, you're not talking a lot of principled, good people. So, what ended up happening, though, was because the revolutionaries had energy and dynamism and most importantly, the backing of the population, they only initially killed 8,000. And, basically these were, for the most part, scum. Just active, nasty capitalists. Think of the guy who owns, what is it, Home Depot. He hates unions, he hates workers, he's a greedy bastard. Would anyone really cry to see him shot? Not if you're normal, no. And, yeah, so, and maybe, I don't know, what was it, 8,000 in, say, 1918 killed. Well, by 1922, how many were killed? 20,000 in, what was it, in Crimea, total killed in that period. So, whatever, maybe another, let's say 10,000, after 1918. Like, that is, a lot of the killing was front-loaded in that first year of the revolution, right? And then the people had to secure their gains, their military gains, and their social gains and all that, and their security gains after that year. So what is that, 1919, 1920, 1921 to 20, about 3-4 years, of struggle. And yeah, so basically 1.5 million were killed militarily, I guess, on the Russian side, and some hundreds, backing them up, Romanian, etc., scum, Polish scum backing them up. Excuse me. On the other side, and yeah, so at any rate, but yeah, so they, if it was 10,000 killed in Crimea, if we can trust that figure, I don't know, let's not suspend disbelief, but let's believe that figure. So let's guess, if half the number, was killed from 1919 until 1922. That's 10,000 Crimea. That's, I believe it's another 5,000 in here in Petrograd, etc. Anyway, I can't, do the math spontaneously. So, but on the other hand, well, I should say you look at the ratio. Let's just look at the ratio. Like, to the end of 1918, 8,000 counter-revolutionaries were killed by the Reds. But 65,000, normal people were killed by the white counter-revolutionary scum. And, this is why I fucking hate liberals, AOC, Bowman, or, to the right of them, Pelosi, Schumer, or to the right of them, like Graham, or, any of that filth. Because you just deal with filth like that in the day to day, and they're nasty, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Do what I say, or I'll lock you up. I'll get the police to shoot you. I'll fire you. They're just, And on the other hand, we basically would, send scum like that off to bury cholera victims, during the revolution, or shovel shit, or take out the garbage, So, so it was a struggle, but you can see, there are orders of magnitudes more necessary for them killing us versus us killing them, right? That's basically the point. Is Trotsky said, after all of this, the ends justify the means. I've got no problem, and I think anyone with a fucking brain and a heart has no problem with shooting any sort of Chad or Karen or Kyle or Becky, right? In fact, there are a lot of people who want to do that, especially after the last 30 years. And, that's killing, that's homicide. But, as Trotsky said, the ends also condition the means. So what does that mean? Well, if you and your side, the Reds, the workers, represent the overwhelming majority, 90% of Russia, then you're gonna have overwhelming, or, you're gonna have a hell of a lot more support. Let's just put it that way. Than, Nancy Pelosi and AOC and Chuck Schumer and Lindsey Graham et al. So you're only going to have to kill, a fraction. How many times does 8 go into 65? 7, 8, almost 8 times. So 800% more, I think that is, they will kill. And their killing was cut short, basically. So, they were crushed and defeated. Well, the first year of the revolution, and then they came back. So anyway, in the end, 1.5 million on our side here in Russia were murdered by, Chuck and Nancy and AOC and Jamal. Then we killed 1.5 million Russians, Chuck and Nancy and, what's his name, Elon, and the other one, Jeff Bezos. We took them out with the trash, in combat, or executing them. So, drowning them, shooting them, whatever. So that was until 1922. So it was like 1-to-1, basically, because, as Jim Morrison once said, they've got the guns, but we've got the numbers. Well, in the end, the Soviet Union armed the hell out of itself, and now we've got the guns too, hypersonic missiles. So that's great. So more of these, bourgeois scum are eating the shrapnel, basically. So, but you look at the death figures from throughout Soviet history, and so it's 1.5 million dead in combat, and 1.5 million these filth would have murdered had they murdered like the Finns did, but they only got to murder, the first year 65,000, and 1.5 million. They did murder 1%, is what they murdered to start, and then you progress on. The second, invasion, they murdered 30 million, 27 to 30 million. and up to 1/4 to 1/3 of Soviet Belarus. My whole family practically was wiped out. That's why I can't wait to fucking shoot them back. That's why I was going to join the KGB and start stacking the bodies back in 1991, when I and billions of others around the globe were betrayed by filth like Yeltsin. My buddy said, yeah, they should have shot Yeltsin. He was the most active loudmouth bastard, and that would have, well, there are other factors involved, but that would have been really great to shoot him and move on to Gaidar and all that other filth, and whatever. But the revolution ran out of energy, and cadre, the bench, thinned out. Party was full of opportunist scum. So what else? And then, so from 1991 to 1999, I'm 23 to 32 years old, and upwards of 15 million are murdered by these fucking traitors and the jackals of the West. Exposure, despair, disease, alcoholism, drug abuse, etc. Excuse me. And so you look at that compared to how many did we kill in the terror up until 1922. Was it 20,000 in Crimea during that whole period killed? Most of them were scum. 10,000 here in Petrograd, that's 30,000. Maybe it was 50,000, basically outright killed, or 1.5 million, I guess, in combat and terror, but, mostly combat. And that number of, let's say 50,000 shot or drowned of, Chad and Karen, Becky and Kyle, AOC and Nancy and Chuck. Great. The world doesn't need those people. Quite the contrary. So, what else? But the price for counter-revolution, I mean, that's 45 to 50 million people, here in the Soviet Republic, Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, murdered by, Chad, Karen, Nancy, Kyle, and Becky, etc. And and lives ruined, including mine. So, so think about that. The next time some fucking moron trader, little bartender or barbershop scum says something about Zinoviev or Lenin were maniacs, or communism killed Stalin killed more than Hitler. Even these old fools are spouting that shit. Which is why I can't wait for the trash in the West to be taken out, because they deserve it. I mean, you look at the Russian Civil War, only hundreds of of scum from each of those countries, whatever the country list was from Wikipedia. I think it was like 10 countries. Well, really 15 back to the invasion, but hundreds, maybe 500 or something like that from each country, or maybe not even 1,000 from each country, got the bullet or what have you. So, excuse me. So, it's past due for Western Europe and the USA to suffer for, the upwards of 50 million they murdered over here. So.